Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm out here in the greenhouse doing some yard work, so that means you get to see me doing yard work while I review a book. And this one actually is pretty good. So, play that intro! Alright, so the book we're talking about today is actually a really cool one. This was suggested by Gabe, who of course has a Stalin profile picture, which already makes me credulous. It's called A Commander's Path, A Road to Freedom, or basically there's freedom in the name. And what I do love about is that this is a Command and Conquer fanfiction. Now, there have been a few Command and Conquer fanfictions before, but this one does Familiar Zero. Now, from my understanding of Familiar Zero, it's basically a summoning thing where apparently you summon a familiar, and it's supposed to be like your partner or some shit like that. I honestly don't care. What I do care about, however, is the meat of it, the meat and potatoes. And that goes to pigs. And the meat and potatoes of it is that a ranger unit, a ranger team, is out fighting the GLA. Now, before I continue, this is Command and Conquer Generals, not Command and Conquer, like basic Command and Conquer, where it's the Allied Powers versus the Brotherhood of Nod, or, Command and Conquer Red Alert, which arguably is just begging for this to be a thing. Because think about it. The setup of it is that these peasants are being led in an uprising against the ruling class. Does that not sound perfect for a communist interception, or a communist-type utopia-type deal? And let's face it, it would be perfect for that. I mean, again, the whole premise of this is that they're literally some good old-fashioned American boys literally get transported to another world, and they bring the freedom. They teach these people about freedom, democracy, liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. All while producing weapons from the First and Second World War. In a world of muskets and magic. And this is something I think a lot of people don't understand, is that magic ain't all that cracked up to be. Generation Films did a video on this, talking about, if there were guns in Harry Potter. And they brought up a really good point. The time it takes to do an incantation, a bullet would have already sped by you and literally knocked your ass out. It doesn't matter if you were able to quickly put up a defense spell or not, a bullet is still a bullet. And I ain't talking about a black powdered projectile, I'm talking about a regular gunpowder powered projectile. And the sad part is that with mages, or any sort of spell casting class, you have to do an incantation, unless, of course, you are proficient in saying it off quickly. Even then, a well-placed sniper shot, especially 7.62 by 54, 338 Lapua Magnum, 50 BMG, or anything, hell, even 20 millimeter, is still going to take you out. And with a silencer attached to those weapons, yeah, no, you're still going to be taken out, buddy. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. You're dead. Now, if we're talking about other forms of magic casting, that is a whole other can of worms that I am not wanting to get into. Now, the cast of Rangers are pretty cool because most of them are special operations who have fought against the GLA, or Global Liberation Army, as they're called. Yippee. However, how unlike the other counterparts of Command and Conquer, this one sadly does not have Tim Curry.
Pizza. I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
Oh, how I would have loved to have had Tim Curry in this. I would have been happy. Because, while I may not be communist and I may not support communism, you throw Tim Curry into anything, he makes it good. He makes it sexy. He makes you question your sexuality and your political affiliation.
I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
I love you, Tim Curry. I really do. I really wish you didn't get that stroke and were wheelchair bound. Back to the story. So, of course, the big thing about this operation, or at least the factions presented in this, is that we have a sort of ruling, not autocracy, but a type of religious monarchy, which controls people through religion. Does that sound familiar, anybody? And literally oppresses people and calls anyone a heretic should they try to go against the state. Again, sound fucking familiar? In a sense, we are going up, the actual faction we're going up against is essentially a more religious Britain. Oh dear God, like we already don't have enough problems with the Irish and the, well, correction, like we already don't have enough problems with the Catholics and Protestants killing each other in Ireland. Now there's another world where the Catholics fucking won, well, correction, no, yeah, no, where the Catholics fucking won that war and they're just literally installing their own damn thing? Oh no, wait, it's the other way around, my bad. Forgot I'm Catholic. Actually, it's the Protestants we gotta worry about. Either way, though. So yeah, that's essentially what's going on, is that these people are oppressed in a religious monarchy who will literally brand them heretics and kill them and all that good jazz. Well, here comes good old-fashioned Murica to help shed the light in the fact that church and state are separate, and that no one should be oppressed via governmental oppression and tyranny, or even religious persecution and tyranny as a whole. For everyone has a right to freedom of religion and freedom of expression, where these people have absolutely been oppressed and have been retained, who have essentially lost both rights to those things in this oppressive, tyrannical government. The way this autocratic, well, not really autocratic system, but religious monarchical system is set up, in a way, is similar to Big Brother, or at least the NSOC party, or VSOC, or, again, just this Big Brother 1984-esque type authoritarian government. And while, yes, you may say that's stretching it a bit, the author himself actually comments on a lot of what is said in war. There are a lot of inspirational quotes actually given in each chapter's opening. From the prologue to the latest chapter, there's always a inspirational quote from a military leader, a political philosopher, or even a politician as a whole, especially a moral philosopher or just a sort of philosophy. Even Sun Tzu's Art of War quotes are put in there, especially the Art of Deception. The best part about this is that we evolved this sort of revolutionary army, and from a just band of renegade peasants, as the monarchical rulers like to see us as, especially the other factions, which, by the way, Germania's here, some form of Elven kingdom's here, as well as a neutral kingdom, which apparently is ruled by a crazy madman, and even a religious Catholic state type deal, a type of Vatican state, which is a wholly religious monarchy, or I'd say autocracy, maybe? I don't know how the Vatican is actually run in terms of a political system, since I know that the Vatican is a religious government of sorts, where the Pope is in charge and the cardinals are completely in there. So, if you guys want to let me know in the comment section down below, please let me know. But what's great about this story is that it comments on war itself. Every time someone brings up the idea that war is glorious, war is honorable, the soldiers themselves, the Rangers, will always correct these people and let them know that there is no such thing as glory or honor in war. It's being able to take out the son of a bitch before he kills you or your buddies. And that's exactly what they do in this story. They comment on war. They actually talk about it in a more realistic sense and not try to hype it up and glory it up. You can see that a lot from the different generations who have fought in wars. From the First World War veterans to onward. As war has evolved, the idea of glorifying war, or at least putting romanticism in war, has completely dumbed down to more realistic standards and actual truths. To a degree, if Hollywood continues to try and glorify and romanticize war, or of course the war hawks and other factions of our government continue to try and push for war, the damn warmongers. So the big thing about it is that this story is actually much deeper than just a simple, stupid fan fiction. And I love it. Although I'm not going to lie when I say that there are actually a lot of good characters. Throughout the entire story, there is a bunch of characters that get introduced. A lot of characters from, of course, the Albion, which, yes, that is what the name of the nation they're in is, which is, of course, the British religious monarchy that is oppressing everyone left and right. And they are known as the Albion Liberation Corps. Not Army, Corps. Which means that down the line, they're probably, once they liberate, of course, this nation, they're probably going to try and mold it into the good old-fashioned United States of America. However, since there aren't any states as a whole, that's where things kind of get interesting. Because then we're going to have to see how they, well, in a sense, actually do that. But the big thing is when the war actually does start, and I'm going to stick to the war element, I want you to actually go read this stuff, because again, it is an honest-to-God, really good story, and I want you guys to go read this for yourself. Link, of course, in the pinned comment after this video is done. But, moving on. The way they set up this war is, again, beautifully done. The war and conflict as a whole is one that is of tactics and smarts, deceptions, all this stuff. And then as the war progresses, we see the tactics evolve as well. From hit-and-run tactics to, of course, good old-fashioned trench warfare, and even basic urban combat. But, of course, that doesn't mean that they don't deserve their own bit of casualties. During the course of the war, especially for liberating a city, or at least when they were attacked by dragons and even, honest-to-God, golem, or, gargoyles. Gargoyles is what I'm thinking of. They suffered casualties. Be it from men being burned, from dragon riders to gargoyles killing people, to them being impaled by mages, casualties were inflicted. But not as much as they could inflict on the enemy. And that is what shows the big technological difference between a wholly militaristic, well, not really wholly militaristic, from a more technologically advanced society to one that still relies on magic. Again, magic is not the end-all, be-all of warfare and tactics. And if anything, it is just a stopgap to stifle technological advancement, which this is a beautiful thing. In 1984's world, Big Brother basically says that strength is ignorance, and that's the first thing about it, is strength is ignorance. And of course, Big Brother is love, obviously. You love Big Brother. Exactly what has happened. Technological advancement has stifled because, and this is a beautiful comment by the actual ranger who is now the commander, or the overall commander of the ALC, or the Albion Liberation Corps, is that in order for technological advancement to happen, people must be free thinkers. They must be allowed to think, allowed to question. And this authoritarian monarchical government does not want people to think. They want people to love Big Brother. Thought is outlawed, essentially, and if you try to have free thought or free thinking or even attempt to speak out against the authoritarian government, you are branded a heretic, burned, killed, and otherwise.
Too late, heretic!
You inspire your men to study such foul smut, Commissar? You heretic!
Detestable mutants, fill your heads with such vile obscenity! Die, heretic!
Sister, I need your blood to... Oh, hold on. You're a heretic! You know what? They're just running around shooting each other down there. Better just lay the exterminatus upon these heretics. Alright, fire!
Man, I fucking love it. The parallels between this government and 1984's Big Brother NSOC is amazing, honestly, and I do love this author's writing, and he goes into great detail about the weapons, because the weapons they actually do have, as the war progresses, go from having 1903 Springfields to BARs, yes, BARs as in Browning automatic rifles, to M2 50 cal machine guns, and even Thompsons and M1 carbines, 1911s, even frag grenades. And while the Rangers are still armed with their weapons, including the M203 and what have you, they also give, of course, their forces M79 thumpers, i.e. the thump, the grenade rifle of Vietnam. And that's amazing. It really is. Especially the artillery, because the artillery is a light howitzer. However, as the story goes on, we then finally get the field howitzers, as in the M155, or at least I believe it's an M155, but either way, it's a nice big howitzer, and I fucking love it! And you're thinking, okay, when are they going to get tanks and planes and all that? Well, that's a fun little story, actually. Apparently, the Bermuda Triangle, in a sense, actually is the reason why we lost some planes during after a recon flight. You know, the planes that got lost? Well, they found them in this swamp, and that's how they got the M250 cals and the Thompsons and the M1 carbines and the 1911s. And that's literally where they got them. But the best part is that another Ranger unit that has this entire convoy in the Middle East actually gets transported to them as they're being attacked by gargoyles. And it just gets good. Because now the convoys here, they actually have now logistics. They have more strategy. They got more officers. They have more weapons to work with. And the big upgrade they give their forces are Galil rifles. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, now, why Galils? For a variety of reasons. 3 of which I will name off. Number 1, why Galils? It is based off of the AK platform, meaning stamped steel receivers and can easily be produced in mass quantities and be reliable. Number 2, it can be easily rechambered. The Galils can be easily rechambered for 5.56 by 45, 7.62 by 39, 7.62 by 54, and or 308 Winchester. You get what I'm saying? And the other thing that I absolutely love about this is that aside from the Galils, of course, being produced for their forces, which they are having a hard time, some of them who are so used to bolt-action rifles are having a bit of a hard time for the automatic fire. Meaning that a lot of them will, of course, be retained to probably semi-automatic fire, or they'll use 3-round burst, or attempt to just fire in burst. The other thing that they're not used to, the ones who are actually used to the Thompson submachine gun, or at least the M3 as they're calling it, they're used to the Thompson submachine gun because of the full auto fire, or at least the automatic fire that it can spit out. The big thing about it is that, the only big difference is, of course, the difference in cartridges. The 45 ACP has a lot more stopping power, a lot more knockdown power, versus, of course, the cartridges that the Galils are chambered in, which they do go back and forth between 7.62 by 39 and, of course, 5.56 by 45. Or 223 Remington, for those of you who are in the civilian market. The big thing about it is that every time they introduce a new gun, they always make sure the forces are trained on it. The strategies and tactics are used very well, and one of the big ones is a siege they do on a city. And it is glorious, because one of the big things that they come with, that came from the convoy that came from their world, from the Middle East, is a fucking suit of power armor. I'm not joking, ladies and gentlemen. They got fucking Iron Man levels of power armor, and it has been known as the Angel of Death. And there are so many good moments in this goddamn thing. And it just keeps growing. Like I said, it's a lot. It is essentially on the same levels as The Fight We Choose and Freedom Rings in terms of talking, essentially. It's like Starship Troopers, almost. However, that is a very high bar to stand for yourself to be a type of novel of that level, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say that it is really good. And if I haven't recommended it already, please go read this. It is good. However, it hasn't been updated since 2016, but we'll get to that at the end of the video. The siege of the city, which is known as the Fortress City, it goes as planned. And while, yes, the Dragon Riders, of course, do give them a little bit of hell and do cause casualties on their side, the Comanches and, of course, Apache helicopters, as well as a few other attack aircraft, deal with them post-haste, as well as the power armor worn by the Commander-in-Chief himself of the ALC, giving him the nickname the Angel of Death. And this author does a scene from, of course, Japan, where a rocket comes down and is the arrow of Sagittarius in that anime and manga story, which the manga has long been since completed. And it's still being translated, of course, by a lot of dedicated fans to that story. And yes, one day I will cover Zapan, but that's going to be a long time from now, because, again, I want to wait until the manga is fully translated before I even try to cover that story. But the best part is that the character development and the character building is really good, because aside from the main Rangers themselves, we also follow the ALC forces, including a fledgling special operations team of 4 friends. And even a girl, a granddaughter of the first village they liberated, which is now their main weapons-producing plant and facilities, who is now a hell of a sniper, and would make Simu Haiha proud. It would make Vasily Saisef proud. Would make any sniper in the world proud at her prowess and ability to kill sons of bitches at long ranges. And from having a 1903 Springfield scope with silencer capabilities, yes, they do thread all these guns for silencer capabilities, to even having a op of sorts, or at least an M29 or an M24. A Remington 700, essentially, to a Barrett 50 cal. Yes, the MA2 Barrett 50 cal is in this, ladies and gentlemen, and by God, is it amazing. But, as the war has gone on, of course, the news spreads about this, the nations are kind of curious on how to deal with this. Every single one of them wants to intervene. And of course, the story just keeps growing. Again, everything about this is really good, and I can't go into too much detail because the video is already long enough as it is. And we get to the point where, in the last 4 chapters, it's now we're starting to get more victories and more technology to help beat these sons of bitches. Because up to now, they've just been preparing for the coming fights. And one of their objectives, which was done by the ALC forces themselves and not the Rangers, is to take over some flying ships. And the operation is to either capture them or destroy them, as well as a port town. They approve it, and yeah, they're preparing for the assault. But we'll get more into that after these messages.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
You're reaching deep inside you. Go! The things you've never known. It's been tough, rough going, but you haven't gone alone.
We do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day.
Be all that you can be.
Hey, First Sergeant. Good morning.
You can do it in the Army.
Now, back to G.I. Joe.
Welcome back after the break. So, after all this craziness, the last couple chapters is one huge build-up, one massive assault, one big climax that is being worked on. It's absolutely gorgeous in terms of writing. The writing itself is actually really nice. As I stated before, this is somewhat similar to, of course, Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers. However, that analysis is also kind of, like I said before, kind of hit and miss. But if I had to choose the writing, it's definitely like the fight we chose from our good man, well, you know who, because I'm not going to try and pronounce his username. But either way, though, the big thing about the book, or at least the fanfiction itself, is that everything has a purpose. Everything builds up to this one climactic battle. After literally launching an operation on the shipyard, which, by the way, they now have ships, flying ships, into their arsenal, which, if I had to take a guess, they're probably going to build up somewhat like a, I want to say World War I-ish type ship, but, you know, steampunk, dieselpunk, whatever. But the big thing about it is that they just keep building this thing up. And, like I said, it's one big payoff, because during the whole battle, they realize something about the enemy. The enemy is using zombies.
Groovy.
Yes, zombies. And the author has a sense of humor. He's talking about these zombies in a way that actually, he drops the George Romero zombies, which again, thank you to the author for his nice little pop culture. Love you. But either way, though, the big thing about this author is that, and I've said it several times, but he has done it well written. Yes, there's a lot of detail in it. Yes, there's a ton of stuff into it. Yes, it is worth that read. And it makes it a long chapter, but there's a ton of motivation. There's a ton of character development. There is just a ton of good stuff. And again, I love it. God help me, I love it. Moving to the final 3 chapters. The final 3 chapters is where things get sad. The final 3 chapters has built up to this big confrontation at a whinstone mine. And now there are Germanic mercenaries who are now learning about this. And now the crown is desperate. They're willing to hire mercenaries, even though supposedly that's not good. Or, you know, dishonorable, blah, 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 blah. Either way, though. Again, everything just builds up to this big climactic showdown, which never happens. Sadly, the author has not updated this story since 2016. And that's sad. The author has done a lot of good stuff for it. And I really do want this author to get back to the story. Again, this big climactic battle is worth it and has been built up to it. I want this climactic battle to happen as well as everyone else. But, sadly, I don't think we'll ever hear back from the author. And I don't think he's ever put the story up for adoption. So, I honestly don't know what's going to happen to the story. Because, again, it's a beautiful story. I love it. It's great. It's well written. It has so much stuff to it. And does not follow the same plot as many other familiar Zero stories. And while, yes, of course, it has Murica in it, it's just one of those things. Either way, though. Sadly, that's all I've got for you, ladies and gentlemen. And while, yes, I'm over here preparing to do more yard work, I just wanted to give you this quick little review. Or, not a quick little review considering how long this thing is by now. But, either way, though, thank you all for watching. As always, I've been your stuffed owl. If you want to read this nice little thing for yourself, link down below in the description. Or at least, not really description, but the pinned comment. And, ladies and gentlemen, if you yourself are interested in actually reading this thing, or at least wanting to get in touch with the author, like I said, the story is down there so you can get in touch with him via his fanfiction.net account. But if you want to get in contact with yours truly, or you want to chat, you talk, you know, fanfictions, Murica, what have you, then please do consider clicking that link down below in the pinned comment, where you can join me and many other authors, be it from fanfiction.net to Wattpad to many other forms of online storytelling elements via the pinned comment and the Discord link down below. Anyway, as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been your stuffed owl, and if you want to help out the channel, then please consider donating to our PayPal. Our PayPal is the reason why we are able to do what we do. It is your generous donations that we're able to create the content we create, and it's because of you, ladies and gentlemen, that, well, we're able to do what we do. Anyway, thank you all for watching. As always, I've been your stuffed owl. The next fanfiction, which you guys have voted on, is Britannia versus America by a Mr. Freebrums. Already, I'm looking forward to this, because if I am correct, and his private messages are anything to go by, this is the same guy who did Summoning Freedom, or Freedom Summons, or, you know, the one with George Washington as an angel, and all this other craziness that he's built up on. Should be fun. Anyway, thank you all for watching. As always, I've been your stuffed owl, and see you guys in the next video. Later, guys.